Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening originally released in 1993, and with the remake now released, I thought it would be a good time to discuss this game in more detail, specifically who the actual villain of the game really is. Before we get into that, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and let's get into my theory. When the game originally released in 1993, I was 8 years old. Having played the original 2 Zelda games, I knew Link was the hero of the games. But it wasn't until 1996 when I actually played through the entire game of Link's Awakening did I get to enjoy this wonderful world and finally beat it on my Game Boy Pocket. But being only 10 at the time, I didn't give it much thought into the actual game itself, only what my objectives were in the game. But now in 2019, with the remake on the Switch being available and me being 33 years old, I was able to look at this game at a whole new light. What am I talking about? Oh, you know, that the villain of the game is Link himself. Now before I completely lose you, let me explain something. I know Link is not exactly doing villainous things, but I believe he is being coerced and tricked into being the villain. And the one who is pulling the strings, the one who is the real true villain, is none other than Mr. Owl. Yes, Mr. Owl, who refuses to tell us how to get to the Tootsie Roll center of the Tootsie Pop. I'm on to you, Mr. Owl. Now, in order to explain this theory, I have to explain the story at least a little bit. So, Link's Awakening takes place after A Link to the Past, which is on the SNES. Which, by the way, I want a remake of this thanks to Link's Awakening. I mean, the game looks fantastic. It runs basically on the same engine. Give us a remake of A Link to the Past. Make my life happy. And depending on the timeline chart you're reading, it will either be immediately after A Link to the Past, or it will be after Oracle of Ages and Seasons. But for all purposes, let's just say it's right after Link to the Past. So after A Link to the Past, Link leaves Hyrule off on a new adventure, similar to how Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask happened. If you guys played those games, hopefully you played those games. At the end of Ocarina of Time, Link goes off on an adventure searching for Navi, who left him at the end of the game. Now, Majora's Mask takes place in the child timeline, so then the adventure continues off of that moment when he goes searching for Navi. So in a similar way, after Link has saved Hyrule in A Link to the Past, he goes off on an adventure, and basically his adventure takes him on a boat. Why he's the only person on this boat, I have no idea, but that's besides the point. And being on the boat, he gets shipwrecked after a storm hits, making him lost at sea. Link soon awakens in a bed in the island of Koholint. I continuously want to call this island Konoha. I watch too much Naruto. Standing next to him is a girl named Marin, who Link mistakes for Zelda. That's not really relevant, but that's like the first thing that happens. Terran, who I presume is Marin's dumb father who looks like Mario and is obsessed with mushrooms, can you be more on the nose with that one, has found Link's shield and tells him that the shield washed up on the shore where he was initially found by Marin, and if Link goes to shore, that he'll probably find more stuff that got washed ashore with him from his shipwreck. So off Link goes to search for his sword on the shore, which most likely did wash up on the shore, and as you continue through, you find it. So once Link finds the sword, he's greeted by Mr. Owl. And here we start the whole saga that is Link's Awakening. So Mr. Owl arrives and says, "Oh, you're the lad with the sword. Now, I understand why all the monsters are starting to act so violently. A courageous lad has come to wake the windfish." Wait a second here. Link just woke up and knows nothing of this so-called windfish. So why would he have arrived to wake it? That doesn't make any sense.
That does not make sense.
If it was similar to the other Zelda games, like the first Zelda game, Link arrives to go save Princess Zelda. The second game, Link goes to save Princess Zelda. A Link to the Past, he arrives to save Hyrule. So those have clear motives why Link is there. This game, Link got washed ashore. What would he have anything to do with the windfish? Well, at this moment, the owl gives the biggest form of coercion. As Mr. Owl states, it is said that you cannot leave the island unless you wake the windfish. Well, who said this? Who is this? It is said. Because Marin didn't say this. Taryn didn't say this. In fact, if you go talking to everybody on the island, nobody mentions this. Everybody's happily living their lives on the island. So who said this? Who is this? It is said. I'll tell you who. Mr. Owl. Because throughout the entire time that you're playing the game, Mr. Owl continuously tells you you have to wake the windfish to leave the island. Why can't Link just build another boat? Why can't that happen? I mean, there's plenty of wood. He could just spin attack some trees and make a new boat and be off on his merry way. But, you know, Link is a little naive, so he's going to believe the owl. So, going through, he proceeds to tell us where to go and waits for us at every move as we proceed through the game. Now, as I mentioned, Link is a little naive, so he's going to believe what he's told. Because what's the worst that could happen? Well, I'm going to tell you what's the worst that could happen. Spoiler warning. I'm going to give you a countdown really quick. 3, 2, 1. Everybody dies! That's right. If you wake the windfish, everyone on the island, the inhabitants that you interact with, the creatures, the monsters, animals, and even the so-called nightmares all vanish. And throughout Link's journey in the game, he is warned not to wake the windfish. But wait, who's warning Link not to wake the windfish? Because the owl is telling him to wake the windfish. And if I'm saying the owl's the villain, who are the heroes that are telling Link not to wake the windfish? None other than the nightmares. The nightmares, who are stated as being the enemies in the game, are telling Link to not wake the windfish. But why would Link listen to monsters? Let's be honest, in every journey Link's been on, every time he goes into a dungeon, there's monsters. And where do these nightmares live? Well, they just happen to be in dungeons. So you think Link is going to listen to some monsters in dungeons called, and the monsters are called nightmares? Yeah, I don't think so. So from the very first dungeon you encounter a nightmare in, you are warned not to wake the windfish. And each time you encounter a new nightmare, and each time you defeat the new nightmare, they add more to the warning, stating that if you wake the windfish, the island and all its inhabitants will vanish. They are trying to stop the windfish from being awoken because they don't want to die. That doesn't sound like a villainous thing. That sounds like somebody who is just trying to survive. But, you know, Link's gonna listen to the owl. He's not gonna listen to the people or the creatures that actually live on the island, telling him the repercussions of his actions if he wakes the windfish. And the thing is, Mr. Owl never once mentions this to Link. Instead, he continuously encourages Link with positive reinforcement after each dungeon, after each time he defeats a nightmare. If that doesn't sound like a villainous thing to me, I don't know what does. And in fact, it isn't until the very end of the game, when you defeat the final nightmare, where Link realizes what just happened. Because it's too late. The windfish awakens and tells Link that he was trapped in a sleeping state, and as long as he slept, the island and its inhabitants would exist. But now that the windfish has awoken, everything will now disappear. And after everything is said and done, and Koholint ceases to exist, Link awakens adrift at sea on a plank of wood left from his ship. Confused as to what just happened in his ordeal, he stares at the ocean until he sees the windfish fly above him, leaving Link alone, lost at sea, utterly f***ed. Now, some may argue that the windfish was not real, and Link imagined the windfish at the very end. Hell, the game is called Link's Awakening. And that's the beauty of a game like this, where this type of ending can be left to the player's imagination. Did the island of Koholint and the Windfish really exist, or did Link just simply dream everything up? Well, guys, I will leave the truth up to all of you to decide, as this is just my interpretation of the game and who the true villain of the game was, Mr. Owl, and by a lesser extent, Link. But hey, that's just a theory. A game. Oh, wait, no, that's another channel. Y'all have a great one. I will see you in the next video. Good game.